Welcome to the Too Dad to Quit podcast,
the podcast where we highlight stories of dads on the other side of divorce
to inspire and give strength to dads going through it.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Yoel. Welcome to the Too Dad to Quit podcast,
the podcast where we highlight stories of dads on the other side of divorce,
to inspire and give strength to dads going through it.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Yoel.
And thank you all for listening. Welcome to the first episode of the podcast. And we want to go through and lay out kind of what we have in mind for the podcast, what we've been thinking, what we've lined up, and kind of where the idea for this podcast came from. Yoel and I have been thinking about making a podcast, but we couldn't figure out exactly what subject, what we wanted to cover, what we wanted to talk about. We have some pretty diverse backgrounds. Me personally, I have a background in informal education, switched over to high tech and web design, and I'm now a children's book author and a YouTuber and just a creative person. And we have a lot to offer. And Yoel, he's a lawyer, a notary, now a YouTuber, also an author. We've done a lot in our lives, and it's kind of, we're on our next life and we're trying to figure that out. And part of that is, we just came out of, between us, we have over 30 years of marriage. I have 5 kids. Yoel has 5 kids. There's a lot of similarities between us, and, we were there to help each other through this time. And, there have been many, many people that were able to help us through that time. And not everybody has people in their lives that will help them through this time. And we wanted to be able to give strength to dads that, it's a really rough time, and the process is grueling, it's draining, it's emotionally draining, it's monetarily draining. My own personal background, I'm a child of divorce. My parents got divorced when I was 8 months old. And I actually remember being in court and the judge asking me who I wanted to live with. And I did not want my kids to go anywhere near a courtroom. And that was a big driver for me because, my father didn't totally disappear, but, my time with him was very limited. And I didn't want my kids going through that same thing. And, speaking to him now and I understand how hard it is. And, having that support system around you is really important. And if this podcast helps even one person, stick through that process. And I promise you, on the other side, you will be able to dive in more to your kids' lives. You will be able to be a part of their lives, which is, the most important thing. And, the statistics say that 70% of divorces nowadays are initiated by the woman. And with 50% of the marriages ending up in divorce, that's a lot of divorces that the man did not want that divorce or did not initiate it. And, we think there needs to be a place for men to realize they're not alone, and the feelings that they're feeling are not unique to that. And we do have a lot of, really cool, interesting guests that have been able to, get through that period and are now, successful. Yoel, you want to highlight some of those ideas and people that are on our list of guests that are going to be featured, because I think, even Brad Pitt, all of these, even the most famous person has some sort of story to tell. Brad Pitt, he apparently, for coping and getting through this period, he always wanted to be a sculptor, and he actually dove into sculpting. And that was, his one thing of joy during this very difficult time. And sometimes that's all it takes to make it through that period in your life. Just one thing that gives you joy and inspiration. And we're here to showcase those stories and inspire you guys going through it, and for strength and inspiration, that you're not alone and we're here for you. And hopefully we'll build a community that's supportive and for you, and you'll be able to take strength from that. Yoel, you want to explain kind of why you're here, and besides, having as many kids as I am and a good looking guy?
I was about to say, besides just being a pretty face, no, I just wanted to actually piggyback on what you were saying, Ben, in the sense that really one of the beauties of this podcast and the way we see it unfolding together with you, because we're all on a journey together, as you were saying, Ben, is that these are individuals that have been there just like you and I have been. These are people that at one point or another in their lives, they found themselves really mired in a slump, and they really didn't know what their next move was or what their future looked like. A lot of times it looks like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But what this podcast is going to do is to showcase for you that there definitely is a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And that, as Ben was saying before, these are men that will really inspire you by showing you exactly, what they've been able to accomplish by really rebuilding themselves and making sense of their lives, both for themselves personally and professionally, and also as dads, which is obviously a very large component of the podcast. So I'm really excited about that. Something as well that I think is really worth underscoring is that the purpose of this podcast is really, it's to be upbeat. Okay, is really to be a sort of positive influence and inject an energy into that, because a lot of times I know that when I was first going through my divorce after 18 years of marriage, there was, unfortunately, I get it. A lot of guys are sort of negative, and I joined all sorts of Facebook groups, and I was checking things out in different forums and venues, and there was a lot of negativity out there, which I understand. A lot of guys feel the need to vent, and we'll talk about that maybe on this episode, maybe in a future episode, about how important it is to have that support network and the proper places to maybe vent that frustration. But I think that, I wish when I was going through it, I would have seen more sort of positive stories and more of, the success stories, if you will. And really, everybody's a success. Everybody who perseveres, every guy who's been there and is persevering and doing the best he can is really a success story. And this podcast is really going to highlight that positivity and really, I think, inject a lot of energy and enrich everybody around us, including ourselves, not as hosts and all of our listeners.
Yeah, and I can't even, I wouldn't wish this experience on my worst enemy. But again, there's hopefully by you the same local community, but I was introduced to an underground society of divorced people. Without them, I don't know where I would be today, because they were ahead of me. There's that concept of valleys and mountaintops. And right now, people that we're on on one side of that valley, and some people are just falling into that valley. And if we, just being a little bit ahead of them, we have something to give. And not only us, we're hoping our guests and we have, editors of newspapers, photographers, videographers, writers, high tech people, people that just didn't say, hey, this stinks and I'm just going to give up on life. It's really important that you keep going and keep charging. And, the more you're able to do that and that's a better, you'll be better there for your children. And it's really important to have a good, positive dad in your child's life. And, we hope to show you that through these episodes.
Another thing I just want to add, Ben, if I can, is that another benefit is, just being in all sorts of, Ben could take us through the different social media where you can find us, but whether it's YouTube or wherever you're listening, whatever sort of Instagram, whatever the case may be, it's also an opportunity for you out there. If there's a burning issue or something that you really want to, hear or are interested in, or you really want to be discussed, you can always leave us your feedback. And again, I don't know if it'll be in the comment section below if you're watching this on YouTube, wherever you're seeing this. Ben will take us to where you can find that. But the point is that we really want to be there as sort of as a facilitator to covering the issues and covering the stories that you're interested in learning about. So I'm really excited about that as well.
Yeah, and while you mention it, I guess I'll pop it in here. So it's toodadtoquit.com, TOO, dadtoquit.com. It's also Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Don't be shy. And if you want to have a story to tell, we want to hear it. Our, everybody that we've mentioned the idea of the podcast to says, even some of our married friends, it gets rough sometimes, and just, knowing that it's not just them is a big deal. And so if you have someone that you have a story to tell, someone that might want to tell their story, really it's just the little things, like, you're entering a new phase in your life. I used to call it recalibrating my life, because you basically you build this whole life over X amount of years, and one day it's there and the next day it's gone, and you have to start over. And that's a really difficult process. And so, we're here hopefully to inspire you to, just another day. You just do one day at a time. You don't need a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. You really just need to get through that day and make it to the next one. And I think that, that's the bottom line of where you are, if you're going through it right now. And, life is long, and just you'll see as you do more things, moving forward and putting things together, it'll just accumulate. And you should have faith in future you. You right now is pretty awesome, but future you is going to be even better, because future you will have learned more. Future you will, maybe you don't know how to cook now, but you will learn how to cook, because you're going to have hopefully your kids over, and you're going to need to cook for them and feed them and do laundry and all those fun house things. And, you're going to be better than you are today. Anything else to add on that?
No, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. And again, just to underscore the point that the topics we're going to be covering, some will be heavier, in some circumstances, depending on who our guest is, but a lot of them will be lighter. And it's just going to be a fun podcast to listen to. Like, I think I want to make the point here that obviously we're here as a support, but it's not going to be this sort of heavy type of like, it's I don't want to, I speaking for myself, I don't want anybody, to get the impression that it's going to be like this type of therapy podcast or something like that. Again, we may have, we probably will have therapists on and different guests, and we will talk about some heavier subjects and sensitive subjects that people want to hear. But at the same time, a lot of it will just be like really cool stuff, like really cool things that our guests are doing. And we're going to learn about those subjects, which you talked about, Ben, but I just wanted to underscore that as well. It's going to be a great podcast to listen to. Like, I know I go for runs a few times a week. And if I'm not listening to music, or I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm listening to music, whatever I'm listening to, but podcasts are definitely a big part of my runs. And I'm always looking for good material out there. So that was another reason why I was excited to do this with you, Ben, because this is really something that is going to be obviously with a specific audience in mind, but at the same time, something that a lot of people, you mentioned, married men have expressed interest, and just it's going to be covering topics that everybody's interested in, and are really going to find it really useful and insightful, and something that will really enrich people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I joke, but my friend has invited me on to get my 5 minutes of stand-up. So we might have a stand-up corner. It again, we just want to highlight stories, and inspire you. And yes, Yoel is very, very worried that you're all going to think it's going to be super serious all the time, and I guarantee you it will not. The people we're having on will be entertaining. They have great stories, great inspiration stories. These are people that we both talk to along the way, and they're a little far ahead of us. And then we have our dream list. So,
Oh yeah,
we get back to Brad Pitt and
Ben Affleck.
and the list goes on and on. What did we decide? Donald Trump, yes, or Donald Trump, no?
Well, we're not going to be a political show, as you know. So we're going to have guests that have all sorts of different opinions and political views and whatnot, and that it may come up from time to time. But if we have Donald Trump, it won't be because of any sort of political views. It will be because of the fact that regardless of what his political views are, how you feel about him, the fact is that he's made quite a career of himself after divorce as well. So it would just be, again, just to give you, another taste of somebody from that sort of dynamic. But that's just an example. We talked about celebrities like Brad Pitt and others. I mean, unfortunately, you can say in a certain sense, there's no shortage of people in the public eye, men in particular in the public eye, that have gone through it, and they're on our dream list, and we are going to get them on our show. We're excited about that. So that could be anybody from a Donald Trump to a Ben Affleck. It just, if it's somebody who has something to add and something to say that can be inspiring, or that can be uplifting, or that has a message for other men out there, then we're interested in speaking to them.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to get this started, and I really appreciate you guys listening to the first episode. And we will be releasing the official first guest episode very, very soon. So don't forget to subscribe, like, share, spread the word. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, please let us know. If you know anybody that should be a guest on the podcast and has a story to share, please fill out the form or tweet at us, DM us. We are here to listen, and we are here to help, and we can't wait to get those stories out there.